Bye bye.
Thank you. See you later.
So, hi. Well, first, I'd like to say welcome everybody to this live event. I'm really happy to be here. It was since Pedro wasn't able to coordinate our Anitya CEO. I was invited. My name is Gabriel Brasil. I'm the UX strategy at Anitya, and I'm really happy to have this live event and this chat with Ariel Manzur. Ariel, for those who don't know yet, he is one of the co-founders of the Godot engine. One of the most exciting open source projects currently around, which is a popular game engine, which is totally open source, and it is the engine behind Anitya. And first, thank you for being here, Ariel. And how are you doing? I'm happy to have you here.
Good. Thank you. Happy to be here.
A little bit about Ariel. Ariel has, of course, he has like over 2 decades of experience in game and engine development. And today, as of course, given the introduction, he is one of the most respected names in the game open source community. And I have to say that the Godot engine, especially this year, has been steadily growing in popularity. Which is something that was mostly seen as on the fringe of the open source movement. After some changes in the game engine scene, you really saw a jump into popularity. So people that I talked to. I've been working with XR for several years, but now I'm talking with people that never heard about Godot, but something on the sidelines. They're really looking into it. And I must say, it is a very, I would like to know, is it an exciting moment for Godot? Do you see it changing? What's been your view on the Godot engine recently and your role in it?
Yeah, happy to hear that people are, you know, new people are talking about it. Yeah, I mean, it's exciting, but it's also like you have to think about like video game development. It's like a very long process. So
Mhm.
something happened like a year ago, bit over a year ago, and you're gonna start to see big games come out next year or something, right? Or you start seeing like big studios announcing something a few months ago and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, it's like I guess the biggest change you see is in like game jams, stuff like that, like the latest
Mm.
GMT or
Oh, hello.
dot usage, stuff like that. So and it's also like it's like you have to zoom out. If you look at
Hello. Um, I can hear you. Is everybody hearing him? Yeah. I think he froze here. Sorry. Sorry for that. I wonder if that's a this one thing is everybody here is having is listening to me, right? Yeah, good. So yeah, well, while we wait for the out to return, it is true that from our research and from paying attention is that Godot is really in a very special moment, and that's why we're so excited to hear Ariel talk about it. Because on the latest game jams, Godot engine was for the first time it surpassed Unity as a favorite game engine in some of these game jams, and of course it's not really right there, but it's growing. And I can only say from our perspective here and on the XR development world and inside Anitya is that I mean we remember from 3D development from Blender, how Blender grew up from being something as an alternative becoming like really important. Oh, yeah, you're here. I can hear you. Good to have you back. Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
me?
think I'm a Discord crashed.
Yeah.
Yes, can you
Well,
hear
well,
me?
that's Discord. Yes, perfectly. Thank you. You're talking about the game jams.
Yeah, so the latest GMTK, for example, you saw a huge increase in Godot usage, and so it's something like, yeah, if you zoom out, like if you look at it, like, oh, this year, look at this year compared to the previous year, but for us a year is a long time, so it's like this weird like situation where it's like, yeah, we're seeing it happen in slow motion, and but yeah, it's pretty good, it's pretty exciting, I think.
Now, if we could like just backtrack a little bit, again, could you just talk a little bit how you enter game development and where the project from Godot, where did you grow up from?
Yeah, so we were basically, we here in Argentina, the industry didn't really exist back in the day, like, you know late 90s, I'm talking about a long time ago. And so we were teenagers and we wanted to make video games, so it kind of like it grew up with us, the industry here. And back then you didn't really there wasn't really game engines, or it was different. Game engines were different, they were more niche for specific types of games. And so we were making games and we knew how to make the engine. So we were kind of like the engine people in the local industry here. And so we were making, we joined some studios making the engine, or we would work later, for example, when Godot was already made but wasn't really like available to a lot of people. We were just I was working as like engine consultant for companies that had like Torque engine or some other engine
Mm.
they were using it, and so I would go and help them with the engine. And so it's kind of like that role was very necessary back then. And so for us it was a good fit, and so we started doing it.
Oh, we lost your mic.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
So Godot
Yeah.
was like the fifth generation engine that we were making, and it came up when we saw the at that time the iPhone came out, the iPhone, the PSP, and the PS3, and so those were the two ends of the sort of spectrum of computers. Before that, you didn't really have a portable computer. You had the phones, the Java phones, and you had a few things, the DS, the Nintendo DS, but those were like special. You had to make a special thing for that. You couldn't use like the same engine that you use on PC for the Nintendo DS. So with the iPhone and the PSP, and it was like, okay, we can bring an engine to these computers. And with the PS3, it was like, okay, this is very different, very weird, unusual compared to like your desktop PC. And so that was like, okay, now we need to change the architecture, the core architecture of the way we were making engines. It's not going to work. We need to change. And so that's when sort of Godot started, and we brought a bunch of concepts. Like we already had a scene tree, we already had like the animation system, we already had like a few other things. And so it's like, that point that forced us to like throw away all the core parts of the engine. And then so we said like, okay, let's start over and make everything better. Before, there was some problems with we had all these components, but they all had some problems that we learned from. And so, without that's how it started. I think it was by looking at computers, this new kind of computers that we have that started at that time. It was like 2007, something like that.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I remember I was on a big gaming conference around the like 2003 or something like that here in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And there was a Sony representative who was talking, he was looking for people to develop for the PSP, right? And then there was this huge outcry saying, "Oh, you think us Latin Americans are not good enough for the PS3?" And then he was trying to explain how hard the PS3 was to develop, and that not even in US they had a lot of people working on the PS3. Given that now we have access to these engines and the Godot engine, how do you see changes on how the like Latin American and other markets, places that were not main players in the industry, how do you see that community? How do you saw this community evolving around first availability of other game engines and then the Godot since these early days when game engines were something like that you needed to have like a developer's kit from Sony or from Nintendo in order to do anything. How did you see this changing, if at all?
So there's a few aspects of that. I think the same people came to Argentina on that same trip because the at the time when I say we saw the PS3, we didn't really see it. What happened is the Sony, like a group of Sony people, they came to Argentina and they gave away a bunch of PSP and PS2 dev kits, and they had with them
Yeah,
the lead of like developer support, and that guy explained to us explained to us the whole architecture of the PS3. They didn't send us a dev kit, so we were hearing how it works, and we were like, yeah, this is crazy. And yeah, many of the sort of legacy engines at that time, like Unreal, they had a lot of problems using the cell chip for a long time. Anyway, how it changed, I mean, it did change the way engines are perceived in the industry. Like now it would have been like 8 years ago already. Like before before 8 years ago, having your own engine was seen as like prestigious in your studio. Like if you had a little studio with their own game engine, it was like, okay, this is, these guys know what they're doing. But the problem with that is that if you have your own engine, you have kind of like a lot of power over the product because you can say what works, what doesn't work, and the publisher can't really argue with you. And so publishers didn't really like that. Now that Unity became very standard in the industry, it's like publishers really like having something like Unity because they can have like a in-house team that knows the engine. Also works with Godot or with Unreal, and so they can argue more with the developer. They can say, okay, we can take over your game, or we can, they have more control over the product, and so that really changed. Like nowadays, some sort of mediocre publishers will say like, oh, you don't use the engine we like, then we don't publish your game. And it's like, okay, you're missing out on good content, right? If the game is good, you need to sign it and then figure out what happens with the engine they're using. But some publishers are saying, yeah, we can pass on this game because they don't have the engine we like. And so that was a really big change. um, and yeah, it's in general the industry is more accessible to more people from having engines, from this change that happened where before you couldn't get an engine and then start making games for the phones or for the DS. Right now you can for the portable, for the phones of today, for the portable, for the Switch and stuff like that. So yeah, the markets are more accessible. Obviously, an engine, especially if you don't have like full knowledge of its internals, it will limit you, right? It's like it's a good solution for like 80-90% of the cases, but if you want to be really exceptional, you don't make like on the Switch, you make 90% of the games that you see on the Switch, you make them with any engine, with Godot or with any other engine, but you don't make the Zelda open world game on the Switch with an engine, right? You have to make your own technology, or really know what you're doing and go into the engine and break everything to make it work in there specifically for that game, right? So there's but that percentage it's growing, right? It used to be 80 and now it's 90%, and it's going to grow. I don't know. So yeah, it's changing in some ways. In others, it's not. You still need to be license. For the consoles, you still need the consoles. They're always fighting over like, do we give more access or do we give less access? And it's a market issue. It's like they Sony back in the day, they really wanted to give more access to people. At the same time, the Wii was on the market, and the Wii was full of shovelware. Like everyone was making garbage content for the Wii, and it wasn't because of access to technology. It was because the Wii was the one that sold the most. So everyone was like, we gotta be on the Wii. We have to put anything that goes on the Wii, it will sell, or that was their perception. So it's full of garbage, and so it's in some ways it doesn't change, I guess.
And what do you see the role of Godot? Like you said, for a long time, every time someone came to me and when I talked to people, hey, I'm making a game. Yeah, cool. What engine do? No, I'm creating my own engine. They said, you're crazy. Like, why would you do your own engine? But then people would often say exactly like that because I want to do something with physics or I want to try something else that current other engines does just don't allow me. What do you think? What do you? But how it's been to teach publishers and the community about the fact is Godot easier, like more open to be broken in a good sense to people to tinker with it? Is it too much of a change of mindset from publishers and creators to deal with that? How do you see that process of having an agent that you can really put your hands deep into the system? Is that part of the been always part of the plan of what for Godot? If not,
In some ways, yes, yeah. In some ways, Godot is always like one of the big sort of philosophies of Godot is that we understand that every game, when you go past a threshold of like complexity, you you start to need to make tools specially for that game. Doesn't matter that your engine is the best engine, most complete, featureful engine in the world. You're going to need to make some tools for that game. So that's why Godot has, a lot of, the editor has a lot of ways to give tools to integrate your whole team. Like I always say, like the programmer in a game is creating workflows for everyone else to integrate their content, and your goal is to have the artist and the game designers, level designers. Your goal is to have them enable them to integrate other content without depending on the programmers, right? And so for that you need very good tools that are extensible and flexible and all that. And so in that sense, yeah, it's very easy to go in and modify the engine. There's a technical aspect of the engine core that makes it a little bit, so the way an engine can adapt to so many computers, so many types of computers that we have today, is by becoming sort of opaque in certain ways to opaque and sort of higher level abstractions than what we used to have. And so, in that sense, a higher level abstraction is more difficult to modify, but it's not impossible. And we do the best we can. I think we do and obviously being open source, yeah. It's a great way for people to go in and make their own custom modification features for their game, and uh, have the support of an engine, right? I think the open source aspect there obviously is very important. The example we like to give is like Linux, right? Linux,
mm,
uh, it used to be like in the again, like late 90s, early 2000s, it used to be like a curiosity. Like people would say, oh, nice, this thing is nice, works, whatever. But for this commercial product, we're going to use this proprietary kernel, right? For this big enterprise project, we're going to use Sun or whatever. And now
mhm,
everyone builds on Linux, and nobody's making a kernel. Nobody's if you need a special feature on your kernel, you work on Linux or you work on BSD, any of the others. But it really took over in a way that for we saw that and we said, uh, the game industry doesn't have this. We can be there. We can be the ones that provide this. And I think if you look at that sort of evolution, it you know we can be on track for that, and that's really good because people who are I don't know, even people who are shipping their own devices with their own kernel, they take a BSD kernel and they ship with that. And before they used to bring their own kernel, right? I'm talking about like some consoles and stuff like that. That there's consoles out there that have like a BSD kernel, and before they used to like create their own kernel for each generation. So yeah, it's really it's always going to be more about like integrating more people. Yeah.
Yeah, and on regarding people in the future, how did the community is growing? Did the community made Godot project change in a way that you're not expecting? And how do you see the project growing from now? What would you like to be turning to?
Yeah, definitely the community definitely changed how we approach development. We used to be like just two people making games for small studios, right? And so the community, at first we were not really ready to sort of, you know, welcome them into the project. And so there was a huge change, and now it's pretty much run 100% by the community. And so that was a really big change. I would say uh, we I mean, the other big change I saw is like we are thanks to the community, we were more sort of like we're concentrating more in like good user experience, because
Hmm.
when you are, and I still have this sort of instinct, which is when you are in a studio making games, it's a commercial project. The developers are employees of the studio. You don't need to convince them to use this tool, right? So it doesn't have to be pretty. It has to be productive. That's the main thing, but it doesn't have to be a nice product, right? So it's like that kind of like nice user experience, intuitive, learning and everything. You don't need it. You just have to teach. You have to train them, and you have to say, okay, now use it, do this, and if it's productive, it works for us. And so that kind of aspect of making it more like a product that needs to like sell people, not really sell because it's free, but convince people to use it because it's easy to use, it looks nice, it's pleasant, pleasant experience overall. That was something that the community brought very, very heavily. Right now I would say though that the community very from the game development industry. But right now that's changing. So now we're having game developers showing us, and that's really interesting to me because, as you can tell, I'm very much from the game industry and not really from the open source. I'm a user of open source and I'm a programmer. So,
Hmm.
but I come from that industry, right? So my people are, I would say, are from the people from that industry. So I'm very interested in, this huge influx we're having from studios and professional developers. That's really, to me, that's really interesting. See what happens.
That's I mean that's great to hear. We all here like also very curious. Like I said, I was on the XR development and 3D development, and now I'm jumping into Godot. I was the other way around. I was mostly bound for to like proprietary engines, and I'm really excited that now, since the same way that Blender made 3D development available for everybody, that we have like such a great, and actually it's a pleasure to use. The node system, the way Godot is organized is really, really interesting. Um, and I like to thank you and the whole community for inviting us wants outsiders to be part of this process as well. I'd like to know now, is there if I think we might be open for questions if anyone has like any questions for Ariel. Is there anything you would like to discuss? Anyone in the If not, I do have some questions. So again, everybody just feel free to jump in and ask questions. One last questions. There are like a really some really disruptive and new technologies. I mean, some of them newer than others. Coming around. Of course, we're talking not only XR, all the whole XR technologies with which is like a souped up mobile. If you look from the inside with some very specific needs. You have spatial, which is like part of the whole XR development, and AI. How do you see Godot's role on with this growing interest in AI systems and XR as a platform?
So difficult to say with AI. I would say in general, with this sort of new, there's a bit of a new paradigm of interface, like how you interface with the computer, right? And that's the XR, the VR XR aspect, but also the AI aspect, right? Because from the many things that the AI can do, one of them is like have a conversation and ask what you want instead of having to understand the tool. And so in that aspect, I would say you have the opportunity to say, okay, this is the new way we interact with computers, right? And just like when we went from having you have your desktop computer, right, and it's your computer, you run it, you own you put all the software that you want in your computer, and you use it with your keyboard and your mouse. And then we went to like the phones, right? And in the phones, uh, it's portable, it's great, it's in your pocket, you have the internet, but also every software you run, you have to get permission from like the App Store, right? It has to be approved by some company, and that company became very powerful, or those companies became very powerful, very big. And so um, with this new change, I think there's a lot of people saying like, okay, now I want to be the one that approves everything. And in fact, a lot of these new AI sort of gadgets that the ones that you put on your glasses, or you put on your, I don't know, your clothes or whatever, they're really like just you're carrying a microphone and a camera and an antenna, right? And then everything, all the computing happens on the cloud, on the servers of the company that is running this device. And what they're saying is, now I own all the computers that you run. Not only I approve the software, I own the computer, you rent the computer from me, but I give you this new revolutionary interface. So in that sense, Godot, but in general, the open source community is very important, because we want to, we don't want to like, we want to go back to you own your computer and you do whatever you want with it, right? You don't want we're losing ground in terms of like what we can run on our own computers, and we don't want to lose more ground. So you know in that sense, yeah, open source is going to be very important, and we need to like be aware of that. Like, when they say, look at this AI assistant, it's like, okay, it's really a subscription to use the computer that some company owns, right? No, so sorry, I'm getting a bit activist here, but I think it's something that I'm seeing, that it's a little bit like it's going to be a fight. In terms of like what AI for game development, what's it going to be like? That's like, I don't know. It's difficult to say. I would say it's like, it looks super impressive, and everyone's trying to find like how can we make this a useful tool for people to be productive, to create games. And I think it's going to happen. I don't know how. It's very that's interesting in terms of like anything could happen. And so yeah, I don't know. But hopefully there's going to be a good balance of like, uh, owning your own, owning the tools that you use that enable you to be productive. So that'd be nice.
Yeah, no, this is definitely a completely game changing, and that's very interesting that you pointed out that when you're talking about AI, we're actually talking about who owns the computers, right? And if you're going to be expecting to have AI on all the platforms that we use, including game engines, that means well, someone will have to be running these computers, and this is a very very interesting and important point. And Godot and the open source community will definitely have a really important role in that. Make me think if you're gonna ever have like also like open source AI systems powering or open source platforms as well. This is why it's very challenging given all the
Yeah,
logistics
there,
behind
there's
this.
there is a bit there is a bit of a fight right now over who owns the models and who is releasing the models and who isn't, and all these things. I'm happy that it's happening. I'm happy that there's like some company, like even like you, out of the blue, Meta releases some big model, right? And it's like, okay, the
Mhm.
company that you thought was the evil, the next evil company that wants to own everything is opening up things. And so that's very encouraging. But yeah, it's what's discouraging is, yeah, when you see this, like, because it's not clear if they use AI or not, or if they use anything new, because it's just CD. It's like you have a microphone and a camera, and it's like CD, but you have to. It works better, but you have to pay a subscription. So it's like there's going to be a big fight, and I feel like the fight for owning your own phone, it's a bit lost. Only now they're starting to have like courts are forcing Google to open up the app store, stuff like that. So we kind of lost that fight, right? It's been 10 years since
Yeah,
the smartphones took over, and so it's a fight that we have to be aware of. If you care about,
uh,
if you're very pragmatic. The problem is, if you're very pragmatic and you're like, I just need the thing to do what I want, find me a pizza, then you don't care who owns the computer. You just care that the pizza comes
yeah,
and you pay for it.
yeah,
And so, but for the people who care about this stuff, there's a fight coming, I think.
yeah. Well, before we go, I think we have some questions in the chat room. First, say the Ju was asking if there anything specific regarding optimization that Godot can be the developers, that like if there's any other solution that you don't see on other platforms, how Godot can really empower with the whole optimization process. Especially, and then that connects even with the second question about the what's the role of like WebGL development platforms as well, and if Godot is able to fit an important niche on this environment of like optimized game development.
It's difficult to say. Optimization gets, the more specific you get, it gets more,
No.
specific, I would say. In
Yeah.
general, I would say we are at a good place with Godot to be able to like actually focus on optimization. That's a thing that we're always lacking on. But I think right now we're doing great improvements, because the problem is like the people who can do this are the most expensive people in a team. So it's like the your graphics programmers, your like hardcore like systems people and like physics people and stuff like that. That's the most difficult to find. But right now we're at a place where we can have those people, and those people can work on the we have very good architecture, very solid, so we can people can work on that. And Godot is coming out with optimizations all the time. You have to look. The problem is also we don't have like a marketing team, right? That will say, look at this amazing rendering. So, but you have to look for the announcements, and they'll be there. And when we see some big announcement from some engines, and then people say, do you have something like this to announce? Sometimes we're like, yeah, we kind of have this. You have to tweak this and that, and we have these features. We don't put a name like a catchy name on it, or we don't make you a big demo of like medieval people walking around. That's what it's usually is, like some kind of female warrior running around some castles or something. But we have it. You have to look out for it. But also, yeah, it's the most difficult part of development. And web, I would say, yeah, web is also another one of these like elusive platforms still. uh, but I think also it's in a good place. Like we can finally run code there. We can finally have good graphics. It's a good platform to target in terms of like obviously games are always the most difficult thing to run on any platform,
Mm.
right? So for applications nowadays, it's like the most logical thing is to do it web development for it, even if it's not a web application, even if it's a standalone application.
Mm.
But for games, I think we're finally in a place where, yeah, we can make a full like 3D editor. We can run Godot. We can run the Godot editor. We can make, and so that's great because it's very accessible. Very, anyone can run it and distribute. I mean, it's a question about like how do you monetize it. That's still a question. But in terms of technology, it's really in a good place, I would say.
Well, I think now we're having more questions coming around. I'm checking here. So, I don't know how much time we have. It's just that we would like to use this opportunity to give like a very important announcement for everybody that's here. And if we have like a little bit of time, we can talk a little bit more. Paz, would you like to jump in and give the announcement for everybody? Paz? Any prizes? Any prizes? People want to know about the prizes. Awesome, awesome. So again, remember that Anitya is proudly made with the Godot engine powering it. And Ariel, it was really great talking to you, and it was really good to see your passion and have a better understanding on the role of like an open source software for the future of game making in general. And again, I have a similar background being in Brazil. I've been always struggling on trying to have access to engines. There's always a tool that's a little bit too far away. And it's really exciting to see now to look around and see that now they have all these available tools, and you can see how the community grew from a group of like people who just dream of doing games to thousands and thousands of people actually doing games. And now, thanks to Godot, they'll be able to have even more power and tools available. I'd like to thank you very much, and I think that's it. Is there anything you would like to, any other less any last words, any last message you'd like to share with us today, Ariel?
No, thank you. And yeah, it's great to see it happening and see that people can use it. We're very happy about that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you, Ariel. Paz, if we do we have time for more questions? How are we with time now? You're the ones you paying a little attention to. Okay. Thank you, Paz. Thank you, Ariel.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody on the chat room. Again, any questions? I'll be around. Paz is there, and we can definitely pass it along to Ariel as well. Oh, I just want there's one less technical questions. There are plans to create a project migration assistant tool, for example, tool to identify and help migrate project from 3.5 to 4.3. Oh, moving from Godot 3.3. Sorry, it's G20 here in Rio. There's sirens all over the place. It's very nice.
Yeah, I think there is something. The problem that's never going to be perfect, right? But there is something. But if you have a big project, if you have anitya, for example, it's very big. You're gonna have to do some manual stuff. I find that it's not that difficult. You have to be aware of like your third party. Like if you're using some third party, plugin or something that you don't know the code, then that's going to be a bit of a problem. Other than that, like all your scripts are mostly like you just need some automatic changes in the scripts, in the scenes, same in the scenes, and then if you use some very specific like thing in the viewport or thing in the whatever, some very specific things that maybe they're not there anymore because they're replaced by something else. You have to go look into that. But in general, it's not that difficult. But yeah, I mean, a tool, it's it's never going to be perfect because that tool takes a lot of time. It takes more time to make that tool than the time where you have the overlapping versions. Like almost there are very few people still have games in 3.5, so it's like it's almost not worth it to put time in that tool today. So it's like it's a difficult, yeah.
Yeah. And thank you. Like future proofing, it's always complex process and elusive as well.
Yeah, and
Again,
also
thanks again,
also
Ariel.
change.
Oh yeah.
No, oh, no, I was going to say also when you do a version change, it's a good opportunity to break things that you because you want to make them better, so you break it. So it's like okay, it's like one time you're gonna have to maybe put some work when you port, but it's gonna be better, and it's only gonna happen for in 5 years or something. So it's like yeah, it's there's going to be a little bit of discomfort. You get over it, you port, and then you're okay for the rest of the time. So yeah, it's fine.
Okay. If we have some time for some other questions, I have also questions from School Hunter. Do you have any opinions on current games? Like regarding like do they have a solid story gameplay? What do you think it's the most? What are the games that are and the game mechanics that are more entice you at the moment? Because you see a lot of people reverting to old games, playing, like League of Legends and Minecraft, which have like old. I feeling old. I remember when all these games were out. Um, do you think there would be a new genre that would dominate the marketplace? That's more like on a gamer perspective.
I'm old, so to me like MOBAs are this new thing that I don't like because I like to play StarCraft 2. So, but yeah, no, I've been playing Satisfactory, for example. That's a nice building automation game. There's a game called Teardown, which is like it's a first person game where everything's made of voxels, very small voxels, like I don't know, couple centimeters uh, uh, sized boxes, and you can break everything. It's like you can, if you have a wall, if you have a door and you can't open the door, you can punch a hole in the wall and go through the wall. And so that's a very interesting concept, right? The idea of like everything's breakable at this level. So to achieve your objective, you have to think outside of the box of the video game box, where it's like if there's even a tiny door, you can shoot it with the bazooka and it's not gonna break because it's a video game door. But in this game, yeah, everything's breakable. That's very interesting. And yeah, I don't know, modern games. Sometimes I don't really follow. That's the thing. I don't follow. So sometimes I'll play a very specific like Minecraft mod, or something. So, those are the games that lately I've been playing. I kind of like also the space kind of simulators. Like
Yeah.
there's a game made with Godot. It's called Space. I forgot the name. Hold on, I can look for it.
Is that Kerbal space space
No, no,
program? Kerbal space program? No, it's not made to
no,
Godot.
no,
Oh,
no.
that'd be
That's
nice to.
made in Unity. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Oh, Steam is updating, so I don't know. But
no,
it's
yeah.
it's like a it's like a box, also a voxel game, big voxels like
Mhm.
Minecraft, but it's like you're in space and you build a structure with your voxels, and then you attach this
Ah,
special thing to the structure, and now your structure becomes a spaceship. You can fly around, so you can build your spaceship however you like, as long as it has a little thing attached, and then you can go around mining planets for more things to put to your spaceship, and it's like you're flying around space. Pretty interesting.
oh, it's like space engineers, which is that allow you to create like machines in space as well. Actually, well, I have another question. Now the questions are coming in. The Jew is asking, what would you recommend as the best approach for implementing ads in a Godot game to maximize revenue? Are there specific ad networks or monetization strategies that work particularly well with Godot? So ads in Godot games. I mean, that's a fundamental part of any mobile uh, uh,
Yeah.
games. Is anything on
Nah,
Godot that deal with it?
I, I would say nothing in particular. We are lagging a little bit in like integration from service providers. I mean, most of them will have like an SDK, right, that you can integrate, made in Java or made in like Objective C or whatever for Android and iOS. It's a bit annoying. I think that's like a market question more than a technical question. When you start to see games that are good, and then you start to see publishers that really want to sign those games because they don't have anything better to publish, then the publishers are going to go to the ad providers and they're going to say, hey, we need some Godot integration for this because you the thing you have doesn't work or whatever, and so they'll do it, and it's not a question of like, oh, do we have the engineers to do this. The question is going to be like,
Mm.
if we do this, are we going to make money? And eventually it'll happen because people are making good games. So when that happens, like today, yeah, you have AdMob and you have a few other integrations that you can just go and use, and some are easier to use than others. Eventually everyone will integrate for Godot like as their standard. Like today they offer Unity, they offer um, Unreal. We know for a fact that there are more games made for mobile. There are more games made with Godot than Unreal, for example. But it's like this weird, I don't know, this weird like market thing happening. But yeah, eventually you know, it'll be there.
Great. Just also another quick question here. What's your favorite console, if any, at the moment, or in history at all? Like, what's your gold standard on gaming console?
No, I mean each has their own, and nowadays a console is really just a computer you
Yeah.
know, with a tough way to load games into it. I would say, I like the Switch. I really like the Switch because they've been able. The Switch is really a phone. Like I always tell people, if you wanna optimize your game for Switch, run it on a phone. Find a phone that has an NVIDIA graphics chip. Try it there. See how optimize there until you get the actual device to try on the actual device. But I really like how they've been able to like kind of become kind of also a TV. You put it on the TV and you can play some decent games there. I really like how they did that. uh, I have I have an Xbox at home because of the Game Pass. Uh,
No,
yeah, I don't know. I really liked. I mean, obviously, I really like the Super Nintendo. I have the age to have the have had the Super Nintendo, and that was a big. I think. I mean, I think the Super Nintendo is the first one that can have like that could have some good classics that even today you will tell somebody go play this, go play Chrono Trigger. It's
yeah,
still it holds up. It's like a 60-hour long game, and it's on this like I don't know 2 megabyte cartridge or something, and it's really great game.
yeah,
And so I think that's the first one because before you could say, oh, there's this really great Nintendo game, but it's an arcade type game. It's a very I guess Mario 3 is also a classic, and it's on the NES. But I think the Super Nintendo was the first to have the really good classics. I don't know.
well, again, usually the first ones. My first one was the NES, but true, the Super Nintendo also holds a really important place in my heart. And Chrono Trigger is amazing. I still play
Yeah,
with my daughter, and it's been like 30 years, 40 years since the whole thing came out, which is crazy. And I think we are reaching your time. Any other questions? And did you say that Godot lightweight setups save a lot of his time? So again, Godot saving time and saving lives once again. Thanks again for the whole
great.
process. And I think we are wrapping up for today. And we are done for today. Again, Ariel, that was the sorry for taking you for holding you here for so long, but was really having a really good time talking with you and sharing everything. And I'd like to thank
Happy
you
to be
once again
here. Thank
for
you.
returning. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And of
Thank you.
course,
Happy to
thank
be
you
here.
everybody
Yeah.
that showed up. Thank you everybody for showing up and have a great day.
Thank
And
you
take
all.
check out the new contest. It's a really dreamy and really exciting prizes. Thank you, Ariel. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.